Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We're so excited to have Joleen Aitchison joining us here live on the podcast and on the Zoomcast. And she's the owner of Genealogy Your Way in Kitsap County, Washington, helping people all over the world with their services. It's genyourway.net. Welcome to the show today. How are you?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and I'm doing well. Thanks.
Pleasure to have you, Joleen. Would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and company? Let's get into everything today. This is exciting to see you face to face.
It is. It's nice to be here and see you as well. I am the owner of Genealogy Your Way. My website is online at genyourway.net. And I have been a genealogist pretty much my whole life before I ever heard the word genealogy. I asked my grandmas lots of questions and gathered information on my family so that I could have the record. Over time, I learned about the different methodologies for researching. You know, people have heard of looking at a census or going to a cemetery and seeing headstones and things like that. And as I became better at it, as I got better at it, I got to the opportunity to research for other people, and it just sort of evolved into a business that I can use to help people all over the world. My one client I had last year was from Australia, which was a lot of fun. Yeah. So I do actual genealogical research. I look for names, dates, and places for people, whatever they're trying to find out. And then I also make presentations to various types of organizations, usually a genealogy society or historical society, often a senior citizen group where they want the presentation and they also want to do some research. So I have lots of different ways of interfacing with people and helping them to find out more about their ancestors and where they come from and how they fit into that big picture.
Awesome. So again, it's Genealogy Your Way, and you offer private services, you said, tailored to each individual or even group with who you're working. And do you want to discuss a little bit about you? Tell me what brought you here, what got you excited about genealogy. Share your own personal story, please.
Okay. I feel like I'm not a lot different than other people who are interested in their own families, but I think the difference is that I just kept going. When I sit down at my computer, I open genealogy websites. I don't open the news or Etsy or Facebook. I open genealogy. So it is who I am and what I do. Like I said before, I started out asking questions. My grandfather died when I was 4 and I had no memory of him. So naturally, I was asking questions about him. But my grandma would tell me stories about her own family as well. And I just kept notes, kept things in my head and started researching, trying to find out more about these different families. I was especially interested. I have a Swiss-French line. And I was especially interested in that, just I think because it was exotic. I always wanted to be French, and I love to learn French words. So, but I started out by filling out the appropriate paperwork back when it was only paper, and writing letters to get information from people. One time, a lady sent me a big Manila envelope full of paper, probably an inch thick. And it was just full of names and dates and places, no stories, of names I didn't recognize. And even now I go, oh, that's that stuff I got from Francis. But what was great about that was then I had the skeleton. I like to think of the names, dates, and places sort of like the skeleton. But then you start learning stories about when they came to the country they were living in and what caused them to go from place to place. So that's the family history part. You get the stories and a little bit of context.
Well, you also clearly have a passion and you've taught me a lot. The past few weeks, we've been doing the regular podcast as well. There's all these, there's a lot of stuff at our fingertips, different websites and resources that we can use on our own. But obviously you have the knowledge and skills to do all this. And you go back searching records, right? To libraries, town halls. I mean, it could be really a tedious process. And of course, you always hope there's that light at the end of the tunnel. There's a connection. There's something, discovered shared. Normally there's sometimes you can't though, right? There's just nothing that you can go back on. So stressed us the importance of what we should be telling our family members that are alive now. What should we be gathering, collecting? I mean, I would say put something in writing, like in an email, send it to everyone, write their information. You need one hub of information, right?
Right, right. And a lot of it, a lot of it has to do with what people are interested in hearing from you. If I start naming, if I'm sitting with my family and I start saying, well, so and so was born in such and such a place and he married so and then they had these children, usually people's eyes glaze over because that's not really interesting to them. But if I pull out a picture and say, hey, this is your third great grandmother, and look at her, doesn't she look sassy? She wore that cute hat in that picture. Just imagine what kind of a person she may have been. So I think that if we, as individuals, think about what we would like people to know about us and put it somewhere. We talked before on one of the podcasts, we talked about how Facebook and Instagram and some of the other social media outlets can be actually where you record your family history, as long as people can get to it.
True.
So, but it's very important, make sure people know, if you move from one state to another, why'd you do that? True. So, that's the kind of thing that people want to know about, and writing it down, typing it up, taking a picture, all of those things will help other people know what you already know.
Amazing. Well, what else do you want to share with our listeners today about you and your services?
Well, I thought I would like to talk a little bit about what it is I do if you were to ask me to do something for you. So I offer one I couldn't remember the name of it in our first podcast because I get stuck on getting started, but I have one called initial research, and it's where I will take what you know or what you think you know and spend an hour or two researching. And I don't do the in-depth research. Like, I'm not as concerned about making sure I have the correct primary source and that kind of thing. But what I'll do is take a look at other people's family trees, what we call the low-hanging fruit. I'll do a search and gather basically whatever I can find about the persons you're looking for. And then I spend some time creating a suggested research path. And then that is where we start. If the client wants me to continue, then they can say, well, I'd really like to know about 1B. So let's go forward with 1B. And how about if you spend 4 hours doing that? So then I know exactly where I'm searching and how long the client wants me to search. And at that point, I start keeping a much more detailed record of where I have searched, what I have found. And then when I create the research report from that experience, it reads more like a narrative, where it may start with, well, John Smith was born, this way, but about that time, cholera went through the town, and so many people left the town or something like that. So it'll be more like a story of your family based on what I've been able to find. So I really love to do that. It brings people to life. And like you said, some things just can't be found. Most of the world's records are not digitized. Most of the world's records are not online where you can search for them, and they still have to be found the old-fashioned way. But so much more is available that we can learn as much in an hour as it might have taken us a week to do in the 1980s, when we didn't have all these things at our fingertips. So I love that I can find so much so quickly and provide that for people.
Interesting. Could you share some of your client stories with us here today, about how you've helped them discover their past? I mean, they're such great stories.
I do have some fun stories. Sometimes they flee me.
Okay.
So I have one client who has ancestry in Germany. And of course, Germany is different in that it was multiple countries. Like Poland used to be, Poland and Germany. The lines there moved a lot. A lot of people may have heard of Alsace-Lorraine. That's a part of France, but it was also a part of what we now call Germany. So there's a large area in Northern Europe that is what we think of as Germany, but it may be now Austria, Poland, Switzerland, that kind of thing. So when you have German ancestry, you actually have to know where they came from in Europe. And this lady had people in Iowa who were German, and she wanted to know if I could find the immigration record for Hans. So I started looking, and it was a case where there were two men with exactly the same name, approximately the same age, living in approximately the same location. Iowa received the second highest number of German immigrants in the United States. So there are lots of people there with that ancestry. But I was able to find actually his death record when he died in a remote area of Montana. And I found the immigration record that appeared to be him and two brothers. And so for her to, and that told the hometown in Germany, which was actually very close to Denmark, and will now require some Danish research. So it's not done, but we found the bit of information she wanted to be able to go back. So that was one. I just have lots of, so many of them are just things like, I know my grandpa was born in Missouri and he lived in this area of Missouri, but I don't know where he died. And so that would be, the person wants me to try to find out where their grandfather died. Well, that requires double checking his birth, double checking where he lived, make sure that we have the right guy. And especially if it's a common name to the area, you want to make sure you've got the right person with the right wife and the right children so that you can go forward. And one time I went with a friend to find a cemetery in the backwoods of Missouri. And we took a little Honda Accord, which was not a very big car in those days, had a muddy road with potholes, and I had to climb over a fence and dodge the cows to get to the cemetery. And it was really fun. We were able to write down the names of the people who were buried there. Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you. I tried to mute it in time. Like, she doesn't need to hear me sneeze. Amazing. Wow.
It was fun. I find it fun. And a lot of times it can be related to detective work. You know, sometimes you'll see they have the magnifying glass and that's representing genealogical research. Sometimes you can think of it as a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle with some pieces missing, and you have to try to figure out where those pieces are, or you have a piece and you don't know where it goes, so you have to try to figure out where it fits in. And I think that's why I love it. No two are the same. No two are the same.
And I know on your website, again, just remind us how we can contact you. It's Genealogy Your Way?
Your Way is the title. Yep. And the URL is genyourway.net. That's GENYOURWAY.net. And I do have an email address. It's yourpedigree@gmail.com.
Perfect.
Any of these ways are great.
Great. And I know you taught me about quite a few websites that we got. Last week you told me about Drop Dead Fred. Wait, I'm saying Drop Dead Fred. Was that what it was?
It's
Dead Fred.
Dead Fred.
That was to find out what specifically?
Oh, wait. Find a Grave, I think is what
Find a Grave is the one to find out about. And then the one with the pictures.
And then Dead Fred has pictures. And a lot of times there are pictures that have been lost by a family, and you can go in there and try to identify them. I'm one of those. I buy pictures that don't have names on them at antique stores and try to figure out who they are, try to get them returned to people.
Amazing. The work we could do. Yeah, because we were talking about the importance of photos, right? And sometimes our photos, we don't know who's in a photo, but if you go to the website, maybe there could be like a match. I mean, these things are so exciting. And do you also recommend that you work with people to I know you recommend go to the websites to look like Ancestry or whatever, but to even do the DNA tests as well, that can help us?
Yeah. And really the very first thing people should do is talk to their family, because our family is not around forever. As much as we would like them to be, they're just not around forever. And so getting whatever information our family members have is pretty much the starting place. But then you move on to the websites, and because they are so easy to navigate, most people can work in them and find some information. When it gets more difficult is when you have basically picked all the
Mm-hmm.
low-hanging fruit, and you have to start looking at different spellings or different locations, or you need something more specialized. For instance, in my case, my grandfather was born in England. He was raised in Canada, but my dad was born in the United States. So I have, quickly in 2 generations, I'm going from US research to
Oh,
Canadian
wow.
research to
Mm-hmm.
English research. And if you're not familiar with the types of records they have, you either need to familiarize yourself with jurisdictions. Like here we have cities, counties, states. In England, they have parishes. They have, in Switzerland, they have cantons. So you want to familiarize yourself with that, or hire someone who has that expertise to take care of it for you. And because we can find it so much faster than we used to, it's not as expensive really to have that kind of work done by somebody else. Because like I said, you can find in an hour, I can find what I might have found in a week before, and I don't have to wait for it. So I think going to the websites is the best way. And the two major players in the genealogy world for databases and finding information are Family Search, which is sponsored by the LDS Church, and Ancestry.com. Now, Family Search is free, completely free. But the big difference there is that when you put your information in the family tree at Family Search, you are adding to the big world family tree. And if someone else is related to those same people, they can make changes, which can be good, because somebody might have the family Bible and you didn't even know there was a family Bible. They can put that information in there. So it's a collaborative environment. No one can see the living information except the person who input it. And so at Ancestry, the way it works is, of course, you need a subscription, and you build a tree. No one can change your tree. It is yours to work on, unless you invite someone to collaborate. But that's another thing. So there's the big difference. You have your own tree that you control, and or at Family Search, you have the big whole world family tree that you don't really control, but you can contribute to it. Both methods are wonderful, and I use both of them along with a multitude of other family history sites. MyHeritage is a good one, particularly if you have European ancestry, because it is a European country or company. So those are sort of the places you want to start. And then if people want to do their DNA, it adds a whole another element to the research. For one, when you get your matches, you've got 50,000 relatives you didn't know you had, just like that, because we are 99% alike. It's the 1% of our DNA that makes us different than other people. So using that allows you to interface with people that you have a biological connection to, and try to determine what that connection is. And again, it's a situation where for instance, I have a tree that has thousands of people on it, and some of my DNA matches have no trees. So I can be helpful to them. They can look at my tree and add people to their own trees. So, it becomes collaborative. When it gets to where you might want someone else to help with it is when the search terms become confusing, or the specific records don't make sense, or maybe it's in a foreign language that you can't read. You might need help with that. But people can spend a lot of time on Ancestry and Family Search and never actually go anywhere else. There are lots of records there.
Interesting. See, my mom passed 6 years ago. I still regret not doing any type of DNA test on her, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I still have her hair. Can I get that from the hair? Can you? I don't know.
I know they can, but they don't offer it as a commercial enterprise right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I still have her hair when it was falling out from cancer in a bag. So I'm like, maybe that could help me access some of her DNA history, so I could eventually get it into Ancestry to find out more about her.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Wow. And clearly, Joleen, you love what you do. And now, how did this all start? Your passion and love for genealogy? Would you mind sharing?
Not at all. My passion came from probably asking the questions and getting the answers. And each answer caused me to have more questions. And so I just keep going. I look at a pedigree chart, and if there's an empty space, I'm like, why is that space empty? Who goes there? What do I need to find out for that? It's been an evolving passion, but I have definitely identified it as a core part of who I am. And I don't go a day without doing genealogy.
Amazing. And it's really enlightening to me, and I hope our listeners as well, to track down that family history, because it means so much to pass down to future generations. And it also, we learned quite over the past years how it helps with people dealing with medical issues. Like, it's helped us in so many ways. Who knew that you can check, maybe you have a marker in your body for something it's pretty fascinating.
Well, it's interesting too, because I've read about there's DNA, and then there's epigenetics.
Yeah.
And epigenetics is kind of a new science for people to talk about. And I'm sure it's been around for a long time. They've done tests on animals and people about epigenetics, but it's very interesting to think, for instance, if you have a family history of alcoholism, that can be inherited, even though it's not a DNA. I know I say this very simply, but it's almost like it creates a little parasite that connects itself to your DNA, and it gets passed on with the DNA. And what they say with the epigenetics is, as people learn more about their families and try to change things that have occurred in their families, for instance, alcoholism, that they can actually eliminate that piece that got passed so that it doesn't get passed down again. And that's an emotional kind of thing. So I find it fascinating. People have traits. Maybe they're really good at music, and then they find out that they had 4 great-grandparents who all played instruments, or one taught music, or something like that. I think it can be a very connecting, completing exercise.
My goodness. And I just love hearing these stories. And by the way, go to the website. Remind us again what it is.
It's called Genealogy Your Way.
Perfect.
And the URL is
genyourway.
genyourway.net. Yeah, thank you.
Great. And what is it like to work with someone like yourself? What is the process?
The process is contacting me. And these days it's usually by email. And I write back and refer the person to my webpage if they have not indicated that they've seen it or studied it. And then I suggest they look at at what my services are, select which service they think would work best for them, and contact me if they still would like me to help them, which they always do. I haven't had anybody not contact me. So, and then they just send me basic information about their family, and it differs based on the client. If one client last year just wanted me to extend all her family lines, every line. She wanted more people, so all I did was find more people. Some people have specific things, like where in Germany did they come from, or I don't know. For instance, I have a great aunt that we knew she'd been married 4 times, but it was rumored that she'd been married more than that. So I spent some time researching her, and I actually found 7 marriages. So if you have a situation like that, it would be, we always heard this. Can you find this? So that's always a fun thing for me to do too.
Now, we talked a little bit about orphanages. My grandpa was in an orphanage in Poland. Those are harder cases to kind of crack, right?
Yes, they are. Yes.
Yeah, especially overseas that many years ago.
Yeah, and a lot of it would depend on where it was and what kind of record keeping. In the areas that were war-torn, obviously more records are going to be destroyed or difficult to find. They are finding that that the Nazi Germans kept excellent records of their prisoners, and which is fascinating to me. And so some of those are coming online and becoming available to people as they research, particularly their German Jewish ancestry. But again, knowing where to look for the records is the big thing. you don't want to spend all your time on an English website
Yeah.
if you don't have any English ancestry, right?
True.
Doesn't mean people might not have been in England and you may find something there, but knowing that where the censuses are, knowing what's indexed and what isn't, just knowing that some things aren't indexed and you might have to go page by page through a reel of film, digitized film. I mean, I have to do that with some of the things that I do. So it's locating those records, and I would be happy to help someone locate records. If somebody wants to contact me and say, I'm looking for orphanage records in such and such a place, I would be happy to try and help find those records to see if they're available. Orphanages are hard, like you said. Usually the records are sealed and they're like sealed forever, but there are cases where you can kind of figure it out.
Amazing. And you also offer like a full service, like a research report, right?
Yes. So you get a research report. Whatever work I have done, I will keep track of my sources with good footnotes for your report. And I prepare the report in a word processing program so that and in my genealogy database, so that when I print the forms, all of the footnotes come with it. And then I have a research report I also type up that summarizes what I've done and makes some explanations. Maybe I found a record in an odd place. You wouldn't think you would find it there for that person, but I can explain why that record was there, things like that. So it's basically a summary of what I did and what I think you should be doing next.
All right. Well, remind us, Miss Joleen, how we could reach you.
Okay. You can reach me at my website, Genealogy Your Way. My URL is genyourway.net, GENYOURWAY.net. Or you can email me at yourpedigree@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here live on the show, as well as getting to see you face to face on the Zoomcast. Thanks again, Joleen. Genealogy Your Way. Look her up. She's got so much knowledge and she's really willing to help, and really a pleasure having you. Have a great day.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.